How's it going, everyone? Hope you're having a pretty good day. Today we got a pretty crazy story of this kid who steals over $10,000. So I know you'll enjoy it, so sit back, relax. Sorry about that. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. One like equals one prayer for whatever just came out of my throat. And yeah, let's just jump right into it. We're going to call the subscriber who submitted this story Brian. So anyways, right, Brian one day, this was back when Brian was in 4th, 5th grade or so. By the way, this was a subscriber story. You can submit them to my Twitter or Instagram in the description. Anyways, Brian said that he was in 4th or 5th grade. He doesn't totally remember. He just remembers he was a young kid at the time. And he was asking his mom, like, hey, I really want to go see Steve. And, at this point, Brian had been allowed for like a couple sleepovers, but sleepovers were kind of a new thing. There were, it was only around this time that he was just allowed to have sleepovers. So Brian's mom wasn't super excited by the fact that, Brian just randomly asked, hey, can I go over to Steve's tonight? Because she's like, Brian, in the future, I want to see more, like, I want to know this up front. I want to have like a week's notice. Like, I don't even know if, like, Steve's mom's okay with this. But after, like, Brian's mom talks to Steve's mom a little bit, they realize it's legit. And, Steve is, Steve's mom is totally fine with it. And she was in on it. So Brian's mom's like, all right, man. Like, all right, Brian, it's fine. In the future, please let me know ahead of time. But sure, we can go over there. So anyways, Brian gets in the car. He packs up his bag for the sleepover. And they go over to Steve's house. And, they get there. And Brian is like, hey, man, how's it going? Steve's like, hey, bro, how's it going? By the way, do you mind if Ben comes over later? And just a little background, Ben is he's in 4th grade, so I don't know how like, suspicious he can be. But Ben is definitely kind of I'm not even going to say shady, but if, like, you had to have a shady 4th grader, it would have been Ben, is what I'm trying to say. So shady for being in 4th grade. He was always, like, kind of getting in trouble. He didn't have the greatest moral compass. He was always kind of doing everything was, like, a little off with him. So people, Brian was, like, a little bit, like, kind of looked at Steve like, oh, like, yeah, that's fine. Because, like, at this point, Brian had been dropped off at Steve's house for their sleepover. And, I mean, what's Brian going to do? Like, call up his mom, which he doesn't have a phone, but ask to call up his mom and be like, hey, bring me back. I guess the thing was, it wasn't like, I don't know, Ben was like, very clearly a criminal or something. Which, I mean, he did end up stealing $10,000. So, I mean, maybe, Brian should have listened to his intuition. But he was like, yeah, that's fine. Because they were both friendly with Ben. But, definitely Steve was much closer with Ben than Brian was. And so, at this point, Brian was like, all right, fine, whatever, that's cool. About 20 minutes later, they hear a doorbell, and Brian and Steve are playing, like, Lego Star Wars or something on the Wii, something pretty cool. And they hear the doorbell ring, and at this point, Brian is pretty sure that it's Ben. And, so Steve's like, all right, one sec, let me go over. And Brian hears Ben and Steve talking, so he's like, all right, so Ben definitely did show up. And, so they get there. And, Ben has his sleepover bag, which, obviously Ben has a sleepover bag. I mean, he's coming to a sleepover. Of course he has one. But, Ben is just like, guys, you're not going to believe this. And Brian and Steve were kind of looking at him like, what? Like, what's up? And he's like, dude, no, you're going to have to wait. Like, this is such a crazy surprise. You're going to have to wait. And Brian didn't get it. Like, sometimes in these stories, I'll say that, like, when something bad is about to happen, the subscriber has, like, a gut feeling or just knows. Just, like, inherently knows that something bad is about to happen. But no, Brian said that he didn't, like, have any bad feeling about this. Like, he literally had no idea, like, what was about to come. And so Steve was kind of like, come on, Ben, just tell us what's in the bag. Like, because at this point, Steve was kind of excited. He thought that, like, I don't know, Brian maybe, or that Ben maybe got the new Xbox, or he got like a I don't know, that he got something that'd be fun, or maybe he got like a new Nerf gun or something. Basically, Brian and Steve were pretty sure that this was going to be a fun surprise and not a criminal surprise, which, I mean, you can kind of tell by the title of the video. And, after a while, because they're kind of switching out, because they're playing Lego Star Wars on the Wii, there's 2 controllers, so they're kind of switching out, and the topic of what's in Ben's secret bag kind of doesn't come up again for a second. But after about an hour, right, Steve's like, all right, bro, because Steve apparently has been thinking about this like the whole time. Steve's like, all right, bro, I need to know what's in this bag. Like, I can't be waiting out any longer. And so Ben's like, all right, fine, like, I'll tell you all about it. And, or he doesn't say, I'll tell you. He said, I'll show you. He says, 1 second. So Ben disappears. And, you know, Steve, like, turns to Brian. And he's like, yo, well, what do you think's in the bag? And Brian's like, I really don't know, man. And so Ben comes back, and he has a big bag with him. And he opens it up. And it's just, like, a bunch of, like, $100 bills. And Steve is like, oh, bro, is that, like, play money? Is that, like, fake money? Because Steve thinks that, like, because, look, they're in 4th grade. The most money either of them have ever received is probably, like, a $20 bill on their birthday. You know what I mean? Like, this is, like, out of the realm of possibility. So Steve is kind of like, oh, are those, like, fake, like, dollars? Like, I saw some on the internet. Like, you can buy, like, fake money, but it has, like, a stamp on it. And at this point, like, you know, Ben is looking at them. And Ben just has the craziest smile on his face. Ben just has a look where it's like, no. It just, like, he has a look of, like, no. He did something bigger. He did something better than anything you guys have ever seen before. And Ben is just looking at them. And Brian and Steve are looking back. And Brian started to realize that, no, these were not fake dollars. These were not fake $100 bills. These were, like, real $100 bills. So, and Steve started to make this realization as well. And so Steve's like, Ben, like, these are fake, right? And he's like, nope, these are real. And at this point, you know, very obviously Steve asks, okay, well, how did you get this? Like, how did you get, like, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of $100 bills? Because this is very suspicious. And, you know, Ben's like, I don't know, man. Like, I was just like, I did a lot of lawns. Like, I mowed a lot of lawns. Because at this point, I mean, most of the kids, like, most of my friends did not have summer jobs or any kind of jobs in 4th grade. Maybe in late middle school, early high school, maybe. But that's a stretch. Like, it really was a long time till people got summer jobs. And these guys are in 4th grade. So, you know, even though Steve and Brian that weren't mowing lawns themselves, they still knew that, yeah, okay, you mow a couple lawns, you're not going to get, like, $10,000, right? That's just not going to happen. I don't care if you're mowing, like, the President of the United States lawn. Like, you're not going to get paid $8,000 to do. Maybe. Actually, I don't know what the contractors would be. But the point of the story is, it's very suspicious to both Steve and Brian of, like, where did Ben actually get these hundreds and hundreds of dollars, right? Where did he actually, like, get the funds? Because it seems pretty obvious to him that, you know, he did not legitimately get these $100 bills. So they started to press him. So Steve's like, dude, I don't believe you. And at this point, you know, Brian's like, well, what do you... And Brian also says, like, bro, I know, like, even though I don't mow lawns, I know for a fact that you cannot get that much money from mowing lawns. Like, how did you actually get it? Come on, let us know. And Ben was very adamant, like, no. I made this money myself. I just wanted to show it to you guys before we were to go out and buy some, like, games and stuff. Like, I want to take you guys out to the mall tomorrow, and I thought I'd, like... And that's when Ben says, oh, and I thought I'd, like, buy you guys something, too, if you wanted. And, you know, Steve was a little bit like, oh, okay. And at this point, Steve was like, you know what, maybe I'm not going to question it, you know? Maybe I'm just not going to question it because he's offering. But Brian was starting to realize that something really suspicious was happening here. Because, like, why would Ben have all this money? And even if Ben had all this money, why did he have it on him in $100 bills? It just really made absolutely no sense. So things started to make a little bit more sense a little bit later on in the night. So Ben continues to say that, you know, it's his money, and he's talking to them about how they want to spend it. And they're going online, and Ben's like, oh, look, the new PS, like, 3 or whatever, PS2, whatever came out at the time, it's coming out, like, I think it's in the mall right now. Like, we can buy one. I can get you guys controllers, too. What games you guys want to get? And so Steve and, like, Ben were over at the computer, like, basically, like, just like, oh, my God, I want to get this, and we can get this. But Brian was kind of, like, standing back a little bit and just thinking to himself. Because he's like, there's no shot. There's literally no shot that this kid actually, like, made this money. Like, this is suspicious somehow, right? Something is wrong. And sure enough, Brian was correct. Something was wrong. Real quick, if you made it this far into the video, comment Ben down below. That'll be the secret word of the day. If you made this far into the video, I just like to see how many people made it this far. If you want to support the channel, the best way you can do so is just letting a bunch of my videos run while you're doing something, maybe playing a video game. I don't really know, and I don't really care. What have you guys... Actually, I do care. I take that back. Also, let me know what you're doing while letting these videos play in the background. I am genuinely interested most of the time. By the way, these videos are on Spotify, so first link in the description. And if you want to submit the stories or if you want to submit your own stories, because this is a submitted story, submit it to my Twitter or Instagram. Please be following me before you DM me. And yeah, it's in the description. It's also at Connor Pugs. But with that being said, let's get back to the story, as it's about to get pretty juicy. So anyways, Brian is just kind of sitting there. And while I said that Brian didn't have a phone, Brian did have some kind of like gaming system. I don't know if it was like Xbox Messenger. I don't know if it was like he was literally had an iPad with Clash of Clans on it, and they're using like the Clash of Clans clan chat or whatever. Just think of it like he didn't have text messages, but he had some other way of non-social media to communicate with his friends. So that's when, you know, Brian, like, you know, he goes to the bathroom, quote unquote, and brings his iPad, basically saying he just wanted to go on his iPad and play like Clash of Clans or whatever for like 10 minutes or something without his friends, aka just like going to the bathroom, quote unquote. So he has his iPad, and let's just say it's Clash of Clans for the sake of this, because it's somehow he's messaged through a video game. It wasn't specified, but let's just say Clash of Clans. So he's sitting on the bathroom, he's sitting on the toilet, right? He has his like Clash of Clans out, and he's in like the clan chat, and he's looking through it, and he gets a message from one of his classmates, and his classmate says, "Hey, have you seen Ben around? Like, do you know where Ben is?" And Brian's like, "Dude, what are you talking about?" And this guy goes on to explain to him in the Clash of Clans messages, right, that, you know, Ben was over at his house, and after Ben left his house, his parents, like, lost a lot of, like, his parents, like, had a very large financial loss. Basically, the kid goes on to explain that his parents don't really trust banks, so they have like a bunch of safes or whatever. They have like 15 safes in their basement or whatever, and they were moving like money from one safe to a newer safe because this newer safe was like better or whatever, and they left a ton of money, like a ton of money that they were saving up, and they were going to transfer over to the safes in their bedroom on like their counter, like they had a bureau or whatever, so they left all that money on the bureau. And basically, right, Ben was over at this kid's house, and then all of a sudden, right, Ben just, like, after Ben left, all that money was gone, you know? Like, all of a sudden, all that money was gone. And, you know, the parents were, like, freaking out at the kid, and the kid, like, was like, "I didn't take it. Like, why would I take all that money? Like, it makes no sense." They searched his room, and that's when they realized that the only other person in the house that they didn't know was Ben, and now Ben was gone. So Brian is sitting there, taking, like, a dump, playing Clash of Clans when this absolute bombshell is dropped on him. So he's completely awestruck at this point. He doesn't know what to do because he just got the news that his, you know, maybe not his friend, quote unquote, but someone that, like, you know, that he is in the proximity of and he is friendly with, you know, stole tens. I think the kid said like $10,000, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to put in the title 10. So let's say $10,000 worth of like cold hard cash from one of his friends. So at this point, Brian is like, okay, this is a very delicate situation because I gotta tell Steve about this, but I also don't want to make it super obvious to Ben just in case Ben does anything crazy to get us to like be quiet about the situation or whatever. So anyways, Brian, like, you know, closes his iPad and he walks back into the room, and at this point, Steve and Ben are playing like a game together. And Brian is like, "Hey, Steve, like, hey, can you help me with something?" And Steve's like, "Bro, can you not figure it out yourself?" Kind of implying, like, I'm busy. And Brian's just like, "No, dude, I really can't figure this out myself. Like, I need you." And Steve's like, "Fine." He's like, "Ben, can you handle this round?" And Ben's like, yeah, I got you. I'll just make sure your character doesn't go AFK. So sure enough, you know, Steve walks over to Brian, and he's like, "What, Brian? Like, what's up?" Like, I was in the middle of the game. And Brian's like, "Dude, I know exactly how Ben got that money." And at this point, you know, Steve was like also curious about how Ben got the money, so his ears perked up a little bit. Oh, sorry. And Brian like pulled out his iPad, he opened up like the Clash of Clans chat and just handed it over to Steve. So after about 2 minutes, Steve like closes the iPad, like clicks it shut, and is honestly just like looks at Brian. Is like, dude, what do we do? Like legitimately, what do we do? And Brian is just looking at him like, dude, I don't know. Like, I really don't know what to do here. And Steve's like, okay, well, can you go in there and entertain him? And I'm going to go down and tell my mom about everything. And she'll know what to do. Which, if you're in 4th grade, this probably the best idea. Because, like, I wouldn't know how to handle that situation. Especially now would be awkward. But especially in 4th grade, I'd have no idea what to do. So Steve went down to go find his mom. And Brian was to go upstairs to keep Ben occupied, quote unquote, just to make sure that he didn't hear what was going on and try and, like, I don't know. Who even knows? So Brian sits down and he grabs the other controller and they're playing, I don't know, maybe it's like the 2-person Lego Star Wars, maybe they're playing some Call of Duty. I don't know what they're playing, man. But anyways, they're playing this game and all of a sudden, Ben starts going and be like, yo, so Brian, have you thought about what you want to spend, what you want to buy tomorrow when we're in the mall? And Brian at this point knows that 1, they're not going to the mall together, and 2, Ben is not going to have that money for much longer. So no, he's not thought about it because it's not a thing that's going to happen. But very quickly on the spot, Brian's like, oh, I don't know, man. Like, that's super generous of you. And he's saying this knowing that it's stolen money, but he's like, he's got to he's got to play the part. So he's like, that's super generous of you, man. Like, I don't know if I'm going to get anything. It just doesn't feel right to me. I mean, that is your money. Like, you earned that hard-earned money. Like, he isn't being super obvious, but he's trying to, like, he's emphasizing a little bit, like, okay, now, like, I know this isn't your stuff, bro. Like, I know for a fact this isn't yours. But anyways, and Ben keeps complete character. He's like, yeah, well, I don't know. It took me a while, but it wasn't actually that hard. I just got some lawns mowed or whatever. And yeah, so, like, don't even worry about it, man. Like, you're a cool dude. Like, you can get whatever you want. And Brian is just like, all right, maybe I just come up with something. I don't know. And so anyways, Brian's like, oh, I don't know. Well, I mean, the new whatever game's pretty cool. If they have it, well, I'd like to get that. And Ben's like, yeah, dude, I got you 100%. And Brian is just like, oh my God, this is so freaking awkward, dude. This is so awkward. And, so anyways, Steve comes back up and he sits down and he looks at Ben and he kind of gives this look of like the deed has been done. And Brian looks back at him, just kind of gives him a little bit of a head nod. So they're sitting there. And they're taking turns playing games. And at one point, it is Brian and Steve that are, like, both on the controllers. And it is Ben who's kind of, like, on the couch, like, just chilling, whatever. And that's when Steve's mom walks up. And she says very calmly, like, Brian, like, can I talk to you for a second? There's someone downstairs who needs you. And Steve and Brian look at each other. Or no, like, okay, she said that to Ben. I forgot if I said Ben or Brian. But so Brian and Steve look at each other. And then they look at Ben. And Ben's face it's like Ben has seen a ghost, man. His face goes completely pale. Like his face is pale. Like it's almost as if like beads of sweat start to form on top of his head. Like, he just knows that he's caught. But he's trying to play it cool. And he says, like, oh, yeah, of course. Well, whatever. Like, I'll come down with you. And so Brian and Steve, they wait for Ben to go down, and then they pause the game. They got to know what's going on. So they pause their game. They go to the edge of the stairs where they can listen to what's going on. And that's when they hear Ben's mom be like, I just got off the phone with Gerald's, but let's call Gerald the person he stole the money from Gerald's family. Like, they just called me and said that you stole $10,000 worth of, like, dollar bills from them. Like, is this true, Ben? Ben's like, Mom, I don't know what you're talking about. And she said, well, then show me your bag. I don't know how, like, Ben's mom was so spot on with, like, yeah, it's in his bag. But for some reason, she just knew that, like, yeah, it's in his bag. So he's like, Mom, like, why do I have to show you your bag? Like, don't you believe me? And she's like, I'll believe you once you show me your bag. Like, this is your last chance. He's like, Mom, I swear I didn't do it, but you don't need to check my bag. Which, first of all, this massive red flag right there. But whatever. And, Brian and Steve kind of freeze up because they unpause their game. They continue to play because they know the bag full of $100 bills is just sitting there. And sure enough, Ben's mom walks up the stairs and Ben is behind her like, Mom, no, I didn't do all that kind of stuff, right? And, sure enough, she walks up the stairs, grabs the bag. It's already open, so she doesn't even need to unzip it. She just opens it up, sees hundreds of $100 bills in there, and she's like, I can't believe you do this. Thankfully, Gerald's parents have a heart, and they're not reporting you to the police because you'd go to juvie. You'd be in so much trouble with the law, but you're just in trouble with me, which I don't know what is worse, which, I mean, I think the law would be worse, but you get the point, right? And so at this point, Ben is like all in tears or whatever, and like it is the most awkward situation for Brian and Steve. They're just standing there, or they're just sitting there. And so Ben is like basically hauled off by his mom. And, Steve's mom comes up and she's like, hey guys, so Brian, you're allowed to stay here, but I get it if you just feel weird and want to go home. And she just meant that genuinely because it was an awkward situation. And Brian's like, actually, I'm good. I'd rather I stay here. And she's like, all right, that's fine. You didn't steal any money too, right? Kind of like as like a joking, trying to break the ice. And he's like, no. And it just turned out to be kind of awkward. And she's like, okay. And Steve and Brian sit there. And they're just like, what?
Click on the video on screen right now. I know you'll enjoy it. Just click it. Do it.